Okay, so it's a pleasure to be here and to update you on Terra. We have so many developments and so little time, so I want to jump right in. I will share some of my slides that highlight some of the latest updates on the latest developments on Terra. So I'm going to focus on what I call sort of the economics of Terra. And so I will point out a couple of new things. So in particular, I want to start with those of you that haven't really experienced Terra so far. And I want to tell you basically what you are missing on. And so I will sort of explain a little bit of what's exactly Terra, what's the underlying technology, at least briefly. And then I will talk about what are the news about the technology with respect to, for example, last year. And then I will dive into two main topics that are close to my heart. The first one is an update on Chai, which is the platform we use on the payment system, because that's really what provides us with a lot of data and information about users and how users interact with Terra. And then I will show you and discuss a new product and a new alliance that I think are going to propel the future of Terra. So let me start with what's really Terra. So Terra is a blockchain payment network that is mainly focused in the Asian e-commerce market. It basically rebuilds completely the payment stack on the blockchain. And the idea is to deliver unparalleled efficiency to both merchants and partners, as well as to customers. I will show you that Terra basically is able to address two of what I believe are the major drawbacks of the blockchain and cryptocurrency so far. One was price volatility, and the other one is the lack of real world use case. The reason for this is because obviously price volatility, Terra is stablecoin, and the lack of real world use case, so we have basically adoption figure it out. In fact, basically it's used as payment already across several merchants in Asia. So let me just draw your attention to some of the mechanics that really are driving the mechanism behind Terra. And so to be a stablecoin, in contrast to other stablecoins out there, and for example, also to the Libra project that was basically based on reserves, what we are going to do instead is all based on algorithmically adjusting the money supply. It seems very complicated, but it's nothing more than what central banks do every day. And it's very intuitive. In some sense, if we have a change in Bitcoin demand, there is zero adjustment on the supply side. Instead, for Terra, as we experience a shift in demand, because, for example, there are more and more merchants that adopt Terra as a mean of payment, what we're going to do is adjust the supply accordingly. And so as the price of Terra increases, the protocol issues more Terra. As the price of Terra decreases, because, for example, we might experience a downturn or a recession, the protocol also buys back Terra. And this makes sure of keeping the value of Terra constant across the business cycle. The other thing that I want to point out is that there isn't just Terra as the stablecoin, but there is another important component of Terra, which is really our sort of equity in the system, which is Luna. Luna is basically the ecosystem collateral token. So the way in which we can think about this is every time a transaction with Terra takes place, a fee is directed to Luna. And this transaction fee is dynamic because it changes with the market conditions and is calibrated to ensure full collateralization. So that basically there is a consistent stream of transaction fees that go into Luna. And these transaction fees are then rewarded to those who stake their Luna. The value then of Luna is used to collateralize Terra during contractionary cycles, and so also provides another backdrop for stability. What we believe is the main value proposition, and I will show you that indeed there are many that agree with us that this is super important for both customer and merchant, is that as Terra is used on the e-commerce platforms, new money is printed to maintain price stability, as for the mechanism that I just described. And this growth is then returned to users as discounts. This is super important because these discounts are a way for us to both attract users as well as make sure that the blockchain is significantly more efficient for the merchant than, for example, existing payment options like, for example, setting up a POS with a credit card company. So in the end, this discount model really serves as a way of providing also fiscal policies or stimulus for the Terra economy. Because as there is more demand for Terra, because for example, we onboard the new merchants, we have the supply of Terra increases, and there is then a new money supply that gets reinvested as discount, the fuel even more a demand for Terra in the future. And so there is growth that really drives growth. Okay, so this is basically the main takeaway of how the Terra works and has been working since last year. So now let me just highlight a couple of news with respect to what has been going on in the last few months about the technology. The first one is the integration of smart contracts in the chain. And Terra basically is going to be integrating a multi-chain smart contracts that are developed by a CosmoWasm team. So the important thing about these smart contracts is that they can be run on multiple chains, making use of the interblockchain communication protocol. They are secure because they are secure with most of the known attack vectors that have been evidenced by Ethereum closed by design. And then they can also leverage the speed of WASM and the power of Rust to perform any algorithm you desire. And so this is sort of the first technological step that opens up the possibility for developers to come in and build on Terra whatever they want. We also sort of moved one step forward towards decentralization. And in particular, on June 5th, so just a few weeks ago, Terraform Labs spun down the two validators, Golia and Marine. And this is to basically continue to contribute towards a greater decentralization in the system. And so we are more and more decentralized in this community. Now, one more thing that I want to highlight is that from the point of view of the validators, Terra has been a great deal. So just in the last 6 weeks, Terra has paid out $820,000 to the validators in the network in real non-dilutive rewards. So just to give you a sense of the growth rate of these rewards, so the rewards on Terra grew over the 58 weeks since the launch at an average rate of 17%. So, growth rate is awesome, but what's the total? So even the total is extremely high. In fact, this brings the total paid out network rewards to over 3.3 million. Just to give you a sense of how we compare with respect to whatever else in the market, we are just number 3. So Luna, which is the Terra native token, investment token that I mentioned before, is just number 3 after Bitcoin and Ethereum with more than $3.5 million paid out to validators. Okay, so now I want to shift gear a little bit and start showing you what has been happening on Chai. So first of all, Chai users have reached 1.6 million users with 1 billion annual run rate. And more importantly, one evidence that Chai has been extremely successful in terms of onboarding new users over time. Chai is number 1 app downloaded. In terms of the growth rate and the comparison between total users and active users, what we plotted here is just the last quarter, the last 3 months, from basically mid-April to mid-June. And we have basically total users going from 1.3 to 1.6. So we are basically adding 100,000 users every month. And also the active users are significantly increasing over time. So this is just to show basically the success of Chai and Terra as a payment mechanism. So it's not just the users that have been more and more excited about Terra, but we also have seen an increasing number of integration and overall volume on Terra. So we started a launch with just Timon, and then we added the 24 merchants over time, reaching $24 billion. So we just in the last couple of quarters, we added a few of the most important merchants. So for example, we added We Make Price, which is Korea's #2 e-commerce platform. They just have over $5 billion in volume. We also added Korea's #1 hospitality app. They have around $2 billion in online volume and more than 10 million users. And they have more than 400,000 hotels all over the countries. And then we also added one offline merchant, so the #1 convenience store CU that now integrated with Chai as well. Just to give you a sense of how the payments are split among all these merchants, Timon is a quarter of the overall payments. But what is incredibly good for us is also that two of the more recently added merchants, Enolia and We Make Price, also constitute a significant portion of the overall payments. And this obviously is evidence that the new users that we are onboarding are particularly active on Terra. In fact, we are adding more and more active users. So if we are sort of looking at from the launch to today, we are talking about almost 700,000 active users as of today. Now, one big question about the acquisition of these users is how expensive these users have been for us. And so one nice thing we can do is actually looking into the economics of acquiring more and more customers for Chai. And in particular, one of the main costs for customer acquisition is the promotion rate that we have to offer these customers to basically convince them to use Chai. And here we are plotting these trends. We are plotting the bold dashed line is the transaction volume trend, and the gray dashed line is the promotion rate trend. What we see is basically that the correlation between these two is declining. In fact, while transaction volume has been increasing significantly, especially in the last few months, what we observe here is the promotion rate has tended to actually drop significantly. And so this means that all the nice graphs that I showed you before in terms of the growth in active users in the last few months is great, not only because we have more and more people using Chai, but each one of them costs us significantly less. And in fact, if you also formally look at the correlation between the weekly promotion rate and the transaction volume, has been as high as 24% in the past, especially at the beginning when we were trying to attract as many customers as possible. But now it's actually lower, and it's significantly lower at less than 14%. So this is also very reassuring of the fact that we are becoming more and more profitable as we add the users that cost us less. In fact, overall, if you look at not only the promotion rate, but overall customer acquisition cost, you see that the customer acquisition cost has been trending down significantly since the beginning of 2020, while the customers acquired have seen no actually flattening, but has been actually significantly increasing over the last few months, which is the gray dotted line. Now, one more thing that I want to show you is that since we have the opportunity to actually look at how users integrate across different merchants, we also use this information to actually understand a little bit more about the spending pattern of different users. And what we see is that the customers that are particularly active across multiple merchants are also the ones for which we have to offer a lower discount to begin with. So here we are plotting basically the discount spending per transaction over the number of merchant users used. And as you can see, basically, if I use just one merchant, it's probably because I'm responding to a particular and significant offer. While as soon as I start using two merchants, these discount rates drop dramatically, and they basically go lower and lower as I become more and more active across merchants. This is important because this basically highlights the fact that there is a need and there is also value in cross-pollination of users across different merchants. Because once they get used to use the same platform across merchants, they become also better users for us. And the good news is that starting in the fall of 2019, the share of customers who use multiple merchants has been skyrocketing. So now more than 25 up to 30% of customers are using multiple merchants at the same time. So this is good on one end for the discount for every transaction, which I showed you before, that these customers basically are experiencing lower discounts, but they use the chai across multiple merchants. But this is also good news for us in terms of retention rate. In particular, one other thing that is very different across users, once we compare how they behave across different merchants, is that the ones that use only one merchant are also the ones that are the toughest to retain. We are sort of a little bit over 50% 1 month retention rate for those customers, but we are significantly higher for the ones that use multiple merchants. In fact, once you use more than 3 merchants, you are a retention rate above 80%. Now, one more thing that I want to show you is that if you look at the retention rate across cohorts, so how the customers that we acquired at the very beginning compare to the customers that we acquired over the next few months, basically we see that still the retention rate is pretty high because it goes from 60 to 70%. And so that's also good in the sense that that reassures us that the customers that we're acquiring right now, they are not worse customers than the ones that we acquired at the beginning. Obviously, the ones that we acquired right away are the most enthusiastic and they are easier to retain, but the differential is not so worrisome. The other thing that I want to mention is that now we allow for top-ups, so the possibility to basically put money into your account with Chai, and there are more and more customers that do this. So they are not just one transactions customer, but they basically use the account significantly more. And in fact, over time, we have nowadays we have 500,000 customers that use the top-ups. So they actually put money into their account. Now, this was basically an overview of what's going on with Chai. I want to mention one more thing, which is a new alliance for Terra and what that means in terms of, for example, the next products. And in particular, I will focus on one particular product called Anchor. So what's this alliance? So we formed a new interchain asset association. This is a collaborative effort to help research, fund, and create similar type of assets between Cosmos, Polkadot, and Terra. And this consortium of ecosystem participants research deeply on the potential economic possibility. They want to create new applications and also educate on the new monetary primitives dedicated to POS, proof of stake. And so these asset association will provide stewardship of the technical projects and standards and will promote the adoption of interchain technologies and foster the development of standard processes. So this is basically linked also to the new technologies that I mentioned at the very beginning in terms of the smart contracts that are working also across multiple chains. One product that will be announced very soon is Anchor. This is aimed to be the gold standard for passive income on the blockchain. This is how the UI will look like probably for Anchor. And I want to sort of mention sort of what it is and how that works. So, but before doing that, let me just pause for a second and state what we believe are the weaknesses of the current DeFi, decentralized finance system right away. So while DeFi have been revolutionary in creating fully decentralized crypto money markets, there has been one big drawback, which has been the volatility of the interest rates. And the volatility of the interest rates have been basically the big obstacle to be used as to make these money markets be used as an household savings product. And so what we believe is that the DeFi mass adoption needs the creation of a fully decentralized saving account that offers a dependable and stable APR. What is Anchor? Anchor is exactly a DeFi protocol that leverages the block reward of every major blockchain to power yields on stablecoin deposits. So let me dive in how this actually works. So as I said, basically Anchor is a savings protocol that accepts, for example, Terra deposits and allow instant withdrawals and pay depositor a low volatility interest rate. To generate yield, Anchor lends out deposits to borrowers who put down liquid stake, proof of stake assets from major blockchains as collateral, what we call the B assets. So these B assets are basically the same as the assets that you stake, but are fungible and can be traded. Anchor then stabilizes the deposit interest rate by passing on a variable fraction of the B asset yield to the depositor. It guarantees the principal of the depositor by liquidating borrowers' collateral via liquidation contracts and third-party arbitrageurs. So if this reminds you of something, this might remind you of basically a bank. You have depositors who come in and deposits their B assets, and you have borrowers who borrows Terra, and in the middle you have Anchor who offer basically an interest rate and make sure that the collateral is enough in order to sustain an interest rate that is stable across cycles. And so we believe that the provision of this stable interest rate to depositor is a necessary feature of any savings product that won't achieve actually broad appeal. Now, one main limitation of the existing products that have been out there, like Compound and Maker, has been the highly cyclical nature of the deposit interest rates. And so beyond offering low volatility yield, Anchor is an attempt to give the Main Street investor a single reliable rate of return across all blockchains. And the plethora of staking products, each with varying terms and yields, make DeFi very confusing, inaccessible, and unappealing to the average investors. Instead, Anchor, by aggregating these block rewards from all the major blockchains, is able to offer what we believe will be a benchmark interest rate. Just so that everything is clear in terms of how this works. For example, if I'm depositing Biluna, I'm getting an interest rate, and if I'm borrowing Terra, then I'm actually paying this interest rate, and the mechanism makes sure that the ones that are borrowing put down enough collateral to make sure that the interest rate that Anchor can offer to the depositor is high enough and is stable over time. So in particular, the interest rate is determined algorithmically, as exactly very similar in the same spirit as the algorithm that proposes the monetary policy underlying Terra, and is really a function of the borrowing demand and supply, or what we call the utilization ratio, which is the fraction of Terra in the pool that has been borrowed. And so the interest rate will adjust automatically in order to meet demand and supply and make sure that offering a stable interest rate. Why we believe this is superior, as I said, basically yields on other DeFi protocols are mainly driven by short-term speculative demands for the underlying tokens. And we believe this is something that cannot really be stable. In particular, when speculative interest dies down, the APR will collapse, and with it will bring down all the demand for the savings product in the first place. While the fact that Anchor yield is powered by block rewards by the entire universe of the chain, this also allows us to be more diversified, and I also offer more dependable APR. Now, let me conclude since I am out of time. Overall, we think that cryptocurrency adoption has been measured with as many changing goalposts as there have been with decentralization. However, I think Terra has proven a path to broad adoption via e-commerce, and we expect to see many more applications to contribute to Terra growth. Let me mention that we recently also published an Harvard Business Review article on the future of stablecoin and what that might entail for the e-commerce, together with Nicolas Platias, who is the head of research at Terra, where we actually take a broader view of what's happening in the market and what is likely to happen in the near future with the interaction of stablecoins and e-commerce. Overall, I think a lot of exciting news, and stay tuned. Thank you.